We're live.
Woo!
Live with the man himself, the legend,
Duke Dodson
Duke Dodson.
in his building. Brand
Welcome
new.
to Colonial Beach, boys.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, we are good. There we go. Here with Carter. Blueprint Tour, stop number
Yes, sir.
3 so far. This is a great stop.
Moving up north.
Oh,
Ooh, got sound
yeah.
effects.
Please.
yeah, signatures at the end. We appreciate that. All right. So here we are. We are live. Oh, more clapping. Thank you. Again, so this is stop number 3 for us, and totally a cool place to be chilling because the first one was at Stuart Evans Construction. Really cool. He has his own podcast tour. We were at Urban Core yesterday.
Oh, cool.
In one of their conference rooms, but I wanted to set up just like this at their little kitchenette area,
Right.
in that building. You know, this
Yeah.
was this Staples Mill?
2120 Staples Mill.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
they have a really
B200.
cool. But I was like too much of a last minute Audible play.
Yeah.
And she didn't know we were doing video at the time, so we're now telling people video podcasts because we forget that it's not a thing. But so thanks for joining us today. We're here to talk about coordination and construction. We're talking to all types of people about just generally coordination and mostly how everybody knows it's important, but it's always somebody else's fault when
Yeah.
when it doesn't get
Sure.
done right. And so I thought your perspective would be great from the developer side of things. But before we dive into it, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we are? And
Yeah, so we are at Muse Pizzeria and Arcade in beautiful Colonial Beach, Virginia. Our company has been for 3 years now working on a series like phases of developments up here in Colonial Beach, and this is part of what we call phase 3. So we've done some townhomes. We've restored some historic buildings that are mixed use, commercial downstairs and residential upstairs. And this building is a new build right here on the boardwalk, on the water, on the beach, on the Potomac River here
yeah,
in Colonial Beach. And so it's 2 restaurants, Muse, which opens up today, January 18th. And then next door is Drift, which is going to open up next month. Muse is a pizza-focused concept. We have video games, so it's an arcade. Next door, Drift is going to be seafood, oysters, low country cuisine, a little more elevated experience, fine dining. So very excited about both.
nice, very cool. Keep rolling, Carter. I want to change this camera just to get a little bit of that angle. But,
Okay.
you guys keep riffing on.
Okay.
Wait, first, let's do a cheers.
Yes.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers,
Thanks
yeah.
for coming all the way here.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Y'all having a beer
Absolutely.
before the restaurant's even open.
I know this is great. This is quite a privilege.
But it is afternoon, so it's okay.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Just barely.
We're 4 minutes past.
Technically, it is PM. Yeah.
Awesome. So you guys had a soft opening last
Last night, yeah,
weekend?
we did a friends and family on Saturday. That was our first time. And then a couple more days of training. We did soft opening last night. Went really well.
Nice.
And then tonight's the real deal. Public comes
Awesome.
in 4:00.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess your friends and family would be a little less critical of the mess ups if they happen.
That's
so.
the idea. Yeah. So Saturday we didn't like do table service. They just put food out wherever people could walk around and roam and kind of
Right.
take food and whatever. But the bar staff got to make cocktails for the first time
Yeah.
and all that. And then last night we actually did table service. So the servers waited on tables for the first time, and it was cool. It went really well. We got fantastic partners. One of them sitting right there in this concept. Kelsey Beiser is our general manager and partner, and then Robin Carter is our chef and partner. And so these ladies, this is their, these restaurants are their vision, their dream
Awesome.
that they're opening, and we're just happy to be part of it. And it's a crucial part of this whole Colonial Beach kind of restoration of their downtown.
Yeah.
For those who've never been here, Colonial Beach is a historic downtown on the water, which makes it very unique. It's an hour and 15 minutes from downtown Richmond, about 90 minutes from D.C., about 40 minutes from Fredericksburg. It's a town that had a great history, went through some hard times, and now it's on the rebound. And the historic downtown's a cool little pocket that already had some things going on, some restaurants, some retail, and now the stuff that we're doing and other folks are kind of coming in around us and developing around us as well. And it's really turning into a fun place to be.
Nice. And how far away are the townhomes that we designed with Fulton Singh?
2 blocks. So
Okay.
2 blocks behind me here.
Awesome.
And so that's where I stay when I'm in town. And, phase 2 is diagonal from us here. And that is the wine and cheese shop, a co-working space, and 3 residential units that we Airbnb. And
Awesome.
then in these 2 restaurants here have 9 for sale condos above them.
Nice. That was the old bank?
The bank building is now called Kobe Workspaces.
Okay.
Kobe is our affectionate nickname for Colonial Beach.
Yeah, I remember that.
I love
you
it.
have to yell it, Kobe.
Kobe.
Yeah.
RP.
RP, yeah. Yeah, this is quite the adventure. As engineers, we just kind of show up kind of during design and then disappear until we're annoyingly not available because suddenly something comes to us as a fire and like we're like, wait, what's going on? And so that's kind of why we want to talk about it because
Yeah.
there's always that, engineers, we don't have the budget to basically be at every single thing. Like maybe the GCs or the architects kind of have it baked in to be a PM or more present throughout the process. And then we'll get thrown something like, wait, what's going on?
Right.
We're just trying to figure out where should we as the engineers be. One thing we've been talking about for a bid project, the design bid, is putting in the builders at the table, like including, or I'm curious your perspective, when, well, let me ask you before I dive into that, what is your preference, design bid or design build?
I can be easily persuaded by like the GC and the architect, like if they have a strong preference, and to me it's all about relationships, right? Like period.
Yeah.
So like if it's a GC, an architect that I've worked with before that I trust, that I get along with, and they come to me and they say, I think we should do it this way and here's why, I can be convinced. Adam Tiller on my team,
Yeah.
probably have a stronger
Adam.
opinion. You guys probably work with Adam like way more than me, and he's more. He could probably give you a more educated answer of why he likes one more than the other.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to the relationship. Like, you talked about Urban Core is a group that I'm very good friends with Andy and Jeff, and I trust those guys. Worked with them a bunch, and if they told me let's do this project this way, I would trust them because at the end of the day, I trust them. Like when something goes wrong through a project, and something will, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things will go wrong. How do you work through the pain of a painful job, right? And that's when it comes back to relationships and thinking, knowing that everyone here has a vested interest in getting through this together because we want to do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Ashley mentioned that yesterday when we were chatting with her. She was saying like everybody ultimately wants to do a good job and have it pan out, but the things can get unhinged, and we're just trying to figure out how do we manage that, how do we get ahead of that in the industry, and everybody's perspective is quite different,
What would you answer the question you asked me? Like the design?
What do I prefer?
Yeah, which one and why?
Well, I think that for where we are at Permazip, is small project kind of stuff, so like commercial. I like design build because we get the design assist from the builder, the person that has the perspective of like how, even this project. I think that return duct is one thing that came up. That was the contractor's idea. It wasn't really working how we drew it. And, we spend so much time looking at the code, and we're experts in the code and just like basically applying physics at a high level to just engineering. But in terms of building it, like we spec SMACNA or whatever standards, but we really are not experts in fabricating and building and don't have the best perspective. No engineer, no matter how much experience will have that perspective that a builder does. So I like that part of the design build. We just team from day one. Whereas design bid, it's fine. But often for light commercial, at least in my opinion, there's not enough budget to kind of pay the design team to think enough about the perfect idea that will be implemented.
Right.
With like VDC or coordination drawings and stuff, like we don't get paid for it. So we'll delegate it often to say, hey, well, the contractor, can you get us coordination drawings? Well, they don't usually put that in their pricing when they bid it because there's really not enough money to do all of that.
Right.
And so it kind of breaks apart when it's being bid. Now it's like we get on the opposite side of the table as enemies instead of collaboratively solving problems. So what I've learned with bid projects is to try to be at the kickoff meeting in construction. We were with Adam with one of your projects,
Right.
with Kurt Yards, and he was going over his assumptions, and I was like, oh, okay, those assumptions aren't the ones that I made when I designed. Let's talk about that before we start doing stuff.
Right.
And we get to ask Adam, hey, do you want to pay for the coordination drawings? Or are we okay with just kind of like knowing that we're going to take some walls down and get into a little trouble here and there, because I just want to know like we don't know what's above these walls.
Right.
The builders often kind of assume the drawings are coordinated
Right.
fully.
Right. Right.
And on light commercial, that's just not the case. There's no budget to get that. It would be 3 or 4 times the fee
Right.
to dive like that. But that's just my perspective in the light commercial. Larger
Gotcha.
projects is probably different.
Yeah.
The model can work depending on the project.
Right.
So I think you're right about trusting the team that knows the best contract structure
Sure.
for a given project.
And to me also like the GC and like product type familiarity, right? Like that's so crucial. Like I've worked with GCs where it's their first project of this type, and I've worked with GCs it's their 30th project of this type, and they can help out a ton on the design side because they've seen it 1,000 times. They can get ahead of a lot of problems before they become problems.
Yeah.
That's that's actually another one we've talked about is the experience somebody has in the specific thing they're building.
Right.
We've read a research paper. We've been talking about on all these so far. It was just the short version is there was a PhD paper I read. It was 40 construction projects in China. They were evaluating what factors contributed to the risk of delay of construction and cost overages.
Right.
And so they figured out this way through some nerdy statistical model to like take the historical data of 40 real projects and have determine of 25 some odd risk categories like knowledge of the practitioner or changing throughout design, all that. And which of these put them in as inputs to say which one had which biggest factor, and then put it into a two-dimensional neural network AI to then tell the AI, hey, we got these outputs for these first 30, and then asked it to predict using the same inputs to predict the outputs of the next 10. And it predicted the delay and the overages extremely accurately.
Right.
What they found, one of the highest contributing factors to risk and delay of construction and delay and overage of cost is experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Like somebody building a restaurant that's never built a restaurant.
Right.
Or, somebody doing multifamily that's only done restaurants.
Right.
So that's big for us.
Sure.
So in small projects now, because instead of trying to enforce, draw all the coordination drawings, I'll be like, hey, maybe not this. I mean, these guys are great, but this other one may be $40,000 higher, but they've done 20 restaurants in the past 2 years.
Right.
Yeah. That 40,000 is there for a reason.
They'll make that up, in time, if nothing else,
The one that was 40,000 cheaper might have 120,000 in change orders and a lot more migraines along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. This is our perspective as engineers, though. But so is what I'm saying. You similar in your experience or different? Like, in hiring different contractors, how much has experience been an impact on the success of the project?
Yeah. Oh, it's massive. Look at a company like, Urban Core is a group I've done a lot of historic renovation with.
Yeah.
And every time the historic renovations are maybe the best example. If you get into a new project, you're going to have 15 problems. You just don't know what they are yet until you start tearing down walls and opening things up. And they're never the same. But, give you an example, like Urban Core, so good on the front end of we're helping you with all the government incentives, what you have to do in these projects, enterprise zone, historic tax credits, facade grants. They've done them all, and they take all that off your plate and just do all that for you, right?
Yeah, that's cute. That's huge.
And they've gotten into a bunch of other types of projects now, right? Like a lot of affordable housing and whatnot. So they clearly have an expertise in that. And a group like KBS that we've worked with a lot on the larger multifamily side, ground up, right? They're actually one of the few groups I've seen that are faster and cheaper.
Yeah.
And that's goes back to leverage with subs.
Yeah, they do a lot of multifams, and they kind of can pull some strings there.
So they'll be on schedule for the most part, and they'll be as cheaper than everyone else. And so you're not in that situation. You usually say you get what you pay for. In that case, you're not the cheaper isn't bad. And those big projects like that in multifam. You can't do it unless they're cheaper. You just can't pay more because the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah.
And then what makes these series of projects so unique here from a contractor perspective is that each of these phases is different. Different product type, and it's also out of town for the GC. It's an hour and 15 minutes away, so they're pulling subs from Richmond, Fredericksburg, and DC, Northern Virginia, and you don't have as much leverage with these subs because they think this is the last project I'm going to do for you. We tell them we're going to do more projects, but they may not believe you, right? If it was in Richmond, they would know we're developers are going to keep developing stuff. So that's THS has tried really hard here, but schedule creeps have happened a bunch, and it's because, in my opinion, that's the main factor is lack of leverage with subs.
What's more expensive? The answer probably depends, but time delay or overage in construction costs.
Here it's been time. Yeah, they've been able to keep costs in line, but it's time. Other projects you could argue it's I've had projects go way over on the hard cost side because a historic project where you just more things happen than you expect.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that. One of the value propositions that are integral with Urban Core is their expertise in the process of the historical tax credits. So they're basically almost part of the underwriting, or at least the process of thinking how to make the deal work. They have that knowledge of the book and the accounting or whatever is associated with that.
Right.
We're talking to Stuart Evans about it. He does religious facilities. He's mentioning the same thing. His value is the SBA loan knowledge that he can help churches with. Same thing.
Oh, cool.
So I guess GCs accidentally find themselves as almost like loan experts.
Yeah.
Indirectly.
Well, like Andy and Jeff at Urban Core are, they started off as developers, too. So like they look at it from the developer's perspective, and they try to find a way to help you get there. KBS, same thing. KBS, they'll co-invest in some projects.
Yeah.
And so they're on that side of the table with you as well, trying to help you find a way to get there. Like suggesting VE opportunities. It helps if the GC is not just suggesting this because it's cheaper, but it's cheaper and it doesn't affect the leasability of the units, or what I mean. You're not sacrificing much. They still want you to have rentable units. So I think in any business transaction, it really helps to put yourself in your customer's shoes, and the more you've actually been in those shoes, the better you are at that.
Yeah, my dad always used to say, the best deal is a deal that works for both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a good perspective. And I mean, we find ourselves as the engineers kind of friendly in the very early design stages, and then everybody disappears until there's a change order and it's a problem or something like that.
Right.
Like that's the only time we ever hear from it. And
Right.
so, and then what ends up happening is somebody will say, I did it for the drawings.
Right.
And then my, I guess, smart ass response is, well, that's one picture out of 9 pages of the drawings.
Right.
You're talking about you did it per the picture, not per the specification. The specification asks for this, this, and this.
Yeah.
The reality is what I'm asking for is too much. But if it's a design bid, I kind of have to overspec it because I don't know the first thing about who's going to be on that project.
Yeah.
If it's somebody I trust, like Josh, we've talked about Josh from Howells and Ben Matthews from Metro. These guys are great for us trade contractors we love working with. Then all that stuff kind of isn't necessary.
Right.
That's why a design bid makes me uncomfortable because I kind of have to be that overspec'd engineer with way too much stuff.
Right.
But if that's going to happen, that's where what I've been encouraging. Like, well, okay, architectural fees $40,000, MEPs are 30 or whatever it is. Structurals 15. I don't know. Civil. What if we started normalizing the idea of bringing in like pre-con services with the design team on a bid project? A few grand for that could save potentially hundreds of thousands of bad ideas that engineers and designers are just not going to be able to see in terms of constructability.
Right.
Making the bid package better for this light commercial market.
Right.
Where maybe the supply of services is slimmer too, because these smaller projects, engineering firms wanted to be doing the next big embassy or the 45 foot Manhattan, whatever the heck. So smaller projects, there's a lack of supply on that side of things for engineering. It's like us, O'Neill, a few other people in Richmond, and it gets slammed easily. So a nice compromise, like, well, what about having Urban Core? They're a good fit. We can have some consulting rates for Kurt or whoever to be here talking about these ideas. For us, a mechanical sub. For Josh, I've tried to get him on a few projects as a consultant for that reason.
Yeah.
And then when it goes to bid, when it goes to construction, that kickoff meeting, just have the engineer in there so that they can say, hey, just so you know, this region, based on what we had agreed with Duke or whoever in our services contract, is completely a question mark.
Right.
We sort of know this is going on.
Yeah.
And that way everybody's aware of our assumptions too.
Right.
It's just some ideas.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like in the beginning of the project, as a developer, one of the things I first learned at a class was like the way to think about, for every building that gets built, there's like 10 that don't, for whatever reason, right? That stall out for various reasons. Maybe the land never gets bought, or it gets bought and then they don't build it because interest rates move, whatever. So the developer's always playing this game of how little money can I spend to get to the next step,
Right.
And so like maybe if you're looking at a project to buy, maybe you might spend up to $5,000, but then you don't buy it and you lose $5,000. You've cut your losses at $5,000, right? And then the next step, due diligence, maybe you spend $20,000. And you're pretty sure you're going to do it. And then the next step is, okay, you're going to spend $100,000, but you're 90% sure you're going to do it, right? And so like it's always the balance of how much are we going to do now, because it still might not happen.
Yeah.
And that's that balancing act.
I'm glad you brought it up. This is a little bit of a side conversation, but we have a sister company we're building called Looksee for this kind of reason. I'm calling it like pre-due diligence.
Right.
Like how cool would it be if you're looking at properties or something, be from your home, like tuned in to somebody else with a camera, but you got like a permit zip and an
Drinking a
architect.
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, you're just drinking, beer, having to say, hey guys, hold on, let me look in. You got a call, and they're in a building that you're looking at. It's pre-due diligence, maybe for a few $100, but you got these an architect, maybe a GC, and an engineer on there virtually. They're going through a checklist. We call it a look-see rating.
Right.
And then you say, hey, I have this office. I'm going to make it a church or a restaurant or an office to office.
Right.
And based on what it is and what you want to do to it, these professionals kind of fill out this checklist and kind of give you a risk assessment of like the likelihood that this could be a problem.
Right.
And not a formal like consulting service, but more or less like Zillow ratings of things, the neighborhood rating that they used to do. Something like in that line is what we're trying to build, and we have people that are interested in doing that.
Yeah.
But then you can look at 5 properties in one day from your desk, and then of those 5, the 2
Right.
you might want to start exploring that $5,000 of soft cost with,
Right.
and then you vet the 2 down to 1, and then now you're at the $20,000 level.
Sure.
So we're thinking that could be cool, because then of course for every architect and GC, that's like a great lead. Like,
Right.
why not be on the phone and fill out a thing, and then you got a team built, and then automate the proposal process for like the next step soft cost. It's like, hey, here's this team, here's what they think to be the next step, and then suddenly at the end of that, you have 5 buildings with a look-see rating, each of them with like a proposal of soft costs for a pre-con, a little bit of AE reporting and all that, ready to go.
Right.
And then you can decide of these 5 which one I want to move with.
Right.
And then we walk away from there.
Yeah, and anytime, like, there's parallels in other industries I'm thinking about of like new tactics or strategies like that. They are great ideas once the public is convinced that they work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And until then, you have all this, it sounds great, but is it going to work? Things like we have a baseball card shop in Richmond called Graybo's, and like sports cards, you send off to get graded, and you'll pay like $35 to get graded, and they come back, and you might be a 10, might be a 9, might be an 8, might be a 7. You have no idea, and you get the card back, and it's a 7. You're like, man, it's now worth less than what I paid to get it graded, and so now they have these apps where you can like scan on your phone, and it tells you what they think the grade will be, and it gives you some idea of should I get it graded or not. And that costs $1 or $2 as opposed to $33.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: the AI technology isn't there yet, so the public hasn't jumped on it yet because the public doesn't think it works. But if the second the public thinks it works, everybody's going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? You're never going to spend $33 when you could spend 1 or 2. Right?
Yeah.
And that what you're talking about, the look-see thing, could be great. And if that actually works and it's proven to be effective tool, then I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I mean, it'd be fun to experiment with you and us, and like a couple people want to just try it. Like, hey, we got a couple projects. Let's go through this checklist, see if it could work. And
Right.
because everybody I've talked to been interested in it. Gilbane and a lot, the GCs are very interested. The architects we talked to, they're like, that sounds cool. I would totally do that. And like, well, if that's true, then I probably know a few developers that wouldn't mind a free like
guinea pig
trial guinea pig, to give it a shot.
Sure.
But yeah, that's like, but that is related to coordination, because that's part of it too. All of the knowledge all these different professionals have from the builder's perspective, from the designer's perspective, and trying to get a better assessment on how soon to pull the trigger on a property.
Right.
But yeah, this project, this one, James is architect.
Fulton Singh, James Hill. Yep.
Yeah, he's great. We like working with him.
Yeah, he's done a great job here in these projects.
He's the architect, like the engineer's architect. We like him. We like Fulton Singh, but like he's just so good at like just kind of methodically walking through things with us and understanding like what we'll need for lead time on our thoughts and that kind of iteration and stuff.
Great bedside manner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and us engineers are not famous for that.
Nope.
How's it? So I'm just curious. You've never most developers I know are both GCs and developers, and you're a straight up developer.
Correct.
Have you ever been tempted?
I never want to be a true GC. We've had like on the property management side, we had internal management maintenance companies, and we have we employ some maintenance staff, and that business is hard enough to run and not lose your mind and run it efficiently and effectively, make it turn a profit. We have considered building out our own like smaller kind of GC for small to medium sized projects. Picture like a 4-unit renovation, picture a tenant upfit, stuff like that on our own projects, or maybe our clients that we still manage for. So we have thought about that, but I know like what Andy and Jeff do at Urban Core, I have no desire at all to be a GC.
Yeah, they got to figure it out. We were at their office. You could tell they're very obsessed with operations and like process and stuff like that. Little message boards or checklists on how to do punch. It's just really cool to see.
Process. Yeah, like so like what I hate about their business, like being a GC, is like you have the staff that's on site, and as soon as the project ends, where do they go? And you have to have another project just ready, or if you don't, you're stealing this guy to do 2, and then the clients get mad. Like I was in that world with multifamily property management. Same thing. You hire staff to run particular, and they're on site, and then you get client sells the property, or you get fired, or whatever. then there's no place to put these people. These are people that are on your team that want a paycheck, and
Yeah.
like you don't want to lose them, and you don't always have a place to put them. And so I don't want that staffing nightmare ever again. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Once the project's up, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, and to perfectly align that lead time and then how much it's going to cost to flip the salary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's often what we hear when somebody's like, I need this approved because they're about to walk off site. It's the same problem that you're describing is that
Yeah.
trade contractor is like, well, I'm not going to sit here and wait until I get RFI responded.
Right.
I got another project down the road or whatever
Right.
it is.
Right.
And so that's again, why I like design build, because you kind of start before it becomes an RFI that's like intended to target a change order,
Right.
And it's
Right.
easier to just be like, hey, this is gonna be a problem. This will change the price, but nothing's been bought or fabricated yet.
Right.
Yeah.
We can spec as much as we want, but people just won't read the spec. And even if they did, there's no money to do what we actually are specifying in terms of delegated. Like, because we're not paid to do super detailed coordination, we can do enough to say. I always tell people, my rooftop unit's not going to be in outer space.
Right.
Right, but it's going to be roughly kind of where I think the structural sorter will work, and then we'll do this and that. We'll come across here. We think it'll work, but to really perfectly model exactly what's installed today
Right.
requires so much thought, and then any one thing can make it go out of whack.
Right.
One
Yeah.
sprinkler line, and then that's expensive. The example of real numbers for you for the cost of it is there's a project we were hired Atlanta Constructors to do some stuff. We're working with them, and it was $80,000 for just VDC on mechanical ductwork.
Right.
Some piping. The engineering we would have charged for that same project for 3 trades is about 30 or 40 grand.
Okay.
So twice the fee of one of the trades. So 6 times the actual hours effort to do full VDC, full coordination. And there's
Right.
just simply not enough money for it. So you
Yeah.
have to make a decision. Do I spend $240,000 on a 3-story building to do VDC?
Right.
To
Yeah.
try to prevent every change order? Or do I just kind of like increase my contingency because there's a lot of unknowns and go that way?
Right.
And start off the bat knowing the engineer didn't get paid for it, and the delegated design is not there, and the subcontractor as well. And we just start there, start tearing stuff down, start looking at it together. That kind of thing is my I'd like to see it happen, but we'll see. I'll talk to trade contractors and see how much they scream at me for that idea.
Well, and that's why a lot of that risk decreases with the risk decreases proportionate to like the experience of the contractor too, because they've seen it 1,000 times. They know like what's going to come up. Hey, this is a historic building. Hey, this is a 10-story building or whatever. And they can identify those issues early on and avoid a lot of those things. So even if it's the same cost, you're saving money on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, when the shit starts hitting the fan and everybody's like, what about this $40,000 that just showed up?
Right.
It's real uncomfortable for everybody. How do you
Right.
manage that stress? Like, what's your strategy moving forward in like that kind of difficult scenario?
I mean, you have to be a little crazy to be a developer, man. And you obviously want to work really hard as much as you can to prevent the bad things from happening. And sometimes they're just going to happen, right? I think you have to, from a psychology standpoint, you have to understand it's going to be messy and it's not going to be perfect, and you have to. As a developer, you should always be understanding what the downside risk is and how to protect your downside. I think it goes back to people and process, but if you have people you work with, you trust, and they're always going to try to find the best outcome, well, they'll find the best outcome. And it might not be what your financial model said, but it's now that you're here, you have to adapt. And I mean, give you an example like of coordination and coming together as a team. So we're getting ready to build a nest in Scott's Addition, 5/2, concrete podium, like concrete parking. And right as we got ready to pull the trigger, like the cost of a rebar, I think, went up like so dramatically. It's going to add like $400,000 of cost of the project to a $22 million project. $400,000. So that's significant, right?
Yeah.
And so GC, architect, ownership gets into a room. It's like, what are we going to do? And we ran through several scenarios, and KBS said, we've got this parking, like we might want to change the structure of the parking garage, and we've got this group in North Carolina. I can do it like with the, and I'm going to butcher the name of it. What's where like the tension
rods?
Yeah, that tension. KBS at this point had never done this before.
Yeah.
And so we're on the phone with this group in North Carolina and basically did all the math and said, look, if we try to go this route, we're going to lose $400,000. If we go this route, we're taking a chance that these guys in North Carolina know what they're talking about, but it'll delay us 1 month instead of 3. And we did the math, and we said it was better to do it. So like we pivoted right then, like a week before we were going to start
Man,
and
that's crazy.
changed the whole structure of the parking garage, and it worked.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but it goes back to people, right? Like I knew nothing about that type of construction, still don't, right? I didn't even know what it was called. But I looked in the eyes of my architect and my
Yeah.
GC and my partner on the project, Tom Papa, who's a great mentor and partner. And all three of them are like, this, I think that we should do. I was like, all right, let's do it. Right.
Yeah.
So back to answer your question, I think you have to prepare yourself for the crap that's going to happen. Work really hard to prevent it. But when it happens, have good people around you to help you make decisions to shepherd you through it.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Appreciate you sharing that because
Yeah.
that's huge for people, and that's exactly what we're after is that perspective from you, real life stories of things that have been challenging, especially as it relates to coordination that just come
Yeah.
up, and trying to encourage because of this the nature of this industry being relatively litigious. You know, it gets hairy real quick.
Sure.
And trying to figure out like, can we just get a little bit less of that?
Yeah.
There's ways to move forward, and just it's
Yeah.
a communication, it's a soft skill thing, and engineers are not notoriously gifted at that.
Right.
We have Phil. Phil's called in. Let's bring him on and see what he's got. Hey Phil, what's up?
Bill.
What's up? Hey, Duke.
Yes.
We have a live caller.
Yeah, we
Is
got
the
Phil.
internet's going crazy.
Yeah, the internet's going
Okay.
crazy out
Yeah.
here.
Our very own Phil from Permits.
Yeah.
What's up, Phil?
What's up, Duke? How's it going, man?
Good, man.
There it is. Oh, love that
I'm
shot.
a little jealous. I don't have a beer here at the home studio. So,
Yeah, man.
The whole world's not drinking beer at 12:15.
Hey,
no.
if you're tuning in, just let us know in the comments if you want to join. We can bring you in. There's a link in the comments if you want to come in and just ask some questions to Duke and just chill with
I'll
us.
pretend like I know the answer, Phil. If you ask me something tough, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Phil, asking the most difficult question, and you know, please apologize for being all of our problems at Permazip's coordination. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm going to start it out with a really tough one
Yeah.
for you, Duke. And I've I've put a little I've forward promoted this in our social posts. Can you guess which show I loved so much as an 8-year-old that I have trading cards of them?
Oof.
What show you liked as an 8-year-old? And can you tell me how old you are so I know when were you 8?
I am 38.
All right, so 30 years ago.
Talking
Easy math.
94, 93, 94.
What
I
show
love
that you
this
like
show.
sport that you like trading cards? Like is it like sports cards or like other types of trading cards?
It is not sport related.
Oh, so like is it like Pokemon type stuff?
It's not Pokemon type stuff. I'm going to give you, just take 3 wild guesses and then I'll do the big reveal.
So it's trading cards, but not Pokemon.
That's guess one.
So like
That's not a cartoon. I'm going to take the cartoons off the table.
Oh, and it's a show. It's not a movie. It's not like Star Wars and stuff. It's a show.
It is a show, yeah.
Trading cards.
1993.
Syndicated
The
television
Simpsons.
series. Good guess.
Okay. It's not The Simpsons. And it's too late for Garbage Pail Kids. Like that was way before.
Oh, that is a good guess, too. I think we did have some of those.
That was a nice
In
way
the
to get a
house.
guess in without.
Yeah, he didn't count that against me. I'm not sure I
Yeah.
can even think. Like this, The Simpsons. Am I close? Am I on the right track? But you said it's not animated, right? It's not a cartoon.
It's not animated, no.
So what regular show had trading cards in 1993? Like I was watching back then. I was watching like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and like all the stuff on Fox, True Colors, Parker Lewis Can't Lose. All that
Fox.
stuff.
Oh man, Parker Lewis.
Fox
was
can't
Fox?
lose.
was good. Yeah, it was on Fox.
Getting closer.
Was it like South
Get
Park?
closer.
That's
It
a
was not
cartoon.
South
That's
Park.
a cartoon as well. Sorry.
That's a cartoon. I'm not going to count that since you keep naming
I can't.
cartoons.
I think I'm gonna have to just ask you. I don't think I have 2 more guesses that are worthy.
Can Duke even see me on the screen
can
right
see
now?
me. Yeah, he's got to lean over. Here we go.
Okay. Big reveal.
Is that Penn and Teller?
X-Files
Oh,
trading
X-Files.
cards.
X Files.
I was
That's
Penn and Teller.
hilarious.
I thought
That
it was
is.
Penn and
I didn't
Teller.
Yeah.
know they had X Files trading cards. That is hilarious.
Oh,
though.
yeah. I got a pack right here. Several episodes of the first season. Got the Lone Gunman.
Oh, you got to get those
Are
rated.
you selling them, Phil?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not selling them. This is my personal favorite. Cigarette Smoking Man.
Oh man.
Nice.
Did they
Very
do
bad,
like
dude.
autographs back then?
Oh, I'm sure there's some like little embossed, cool special cards or whatever. So, Cigarette Smoking Man. This is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Rate me.
You know, I
See,
had.
that's the beauty of like trading cards and collectibles. That like that means a lot. It would not mean anything to me, but it means a lot to you. Like something about nostalgia. Like I'm not poking fun. I'm just saying like different things are valuable to different people because it triggers a certain emotion, a memory,
Oh, yeah.
nostalgia, your friends, your parents, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the industry go around. It's a pretty cool industry. Yeah.
I liked your first guess, Duke, is Pokemon.
Pokemon.
That was mine.
Well,
when I was a
Pokemon's
kid.
massive. Like, I
Did
don't.
you ever collect Pokemon?
No,
or do you?
no, but like it's massive in the hobby. Like at Graybo's, we have a small location now, and they do mostly sports cards. But when we expand to the bigger space, they're going to have a lot of TC trading card games like Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and these other trading cards.
We talk about
TC,
this.
That's trading card. That's the acronym.
TCG is trading card games.
I've seen that everywhere
yeah.
on Pokemon. I'm like, what is TC? Okay.
Yeah,
No,
it's,
no.
it's the category. It basically means it's not sport. It's like trading card games.
See,
Gotcha.
Kenny actually knows how to play Pokemon
Yeah,
with
I've
the cards.
played it.
When I was a
My
kid, we
kids.
just traded them and looked at them. I played the video game, but never the actual card game. But
Yeah.
Kenny's got to figure it out
Oh, I can play. We'll have to live stream a Pokemon match.
at Graybo's.
At Graybo is like we're gonna host some weird tournaments and stuff. So like it would like you might find some like tournaments going on there, Magic the Gathering and other stuff there. So
Yeah. I'll have to check it out.
That's like that shop down there in Hopewell, City Point.
Yeah, it's used to be it's Unicorn something now. It used to be called
Silver Unicorn.
Yeah, Silver Unicorn, but
Silver
it's also
something.
formerly and still. What was that old comic shop? Collectible. And you think they used to
One
be
Eye
original?
Jacks is
Don't they do it
no,
in the
there's-
same?
No, One-Eyed Jack's great.
No,
Yeah.
It's like it was like silver.
yeah, it's
Something.
Silver Unicorn.
There's a place on Lakeside, I think, that's still a collectibles place that has a lot of that.
Of course, I have to Google it. Trading cards, Hopewell. The Silver Unicorn is the name, but it used to be called something else. I forget. Anyway, that's
Right
where I
across
go.
the street from the old Basic Skate Shop, man.
Because we're both from Hopewell. We're actually going to release Monuments, one of their building legend. They have a little thing for lease. I'm like, well, maybe
Yeah.
we could put a podcast studio right there. We could just like.
Yeah, I
podcast
know
from
building
it.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you went to Hopewell High School?
No,
I
he did.
I did, yeah.
Okay. What year did you finish?
2015.
Okay, I got a bunch of friends that went there. Like in college, I went to Randolph-Macon, and like 4 of our best friends are. So a lot of friends and family down there in Hopewell. So
Okay, yeah. Born and raised.
So how do you? So what's the biggest challenge? I mean, for you, underwriting, all the knowledge you have, building, construction, lending, and all that good stuff, and you're trying to build a team because you get so much burden of oh crap, I can't do it all, and you need a team. What is the biggest challenge in training a team of like experts in creating deals and developing things, internally, like from an employment standpoint?
Yeah, tons of challenges. I think in development, I think one of the bigger challenges, like especially if you have a company that likes to plan and set goals, you certainly will do that. You're like, I'm going to do these types of projects. I'm going to do this many of them this year. And then you go out there and try to find those deals. And sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. Maybe the market then changes and what you thought you were going to do, that opportunity doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So then you start thinking, well, this is close to that and this is close to that. It's not quite what I was looking for, but it's close. And then you're constantly like re-shifting what your criteria is, like your decision-making criteria. And then, you're off. If you're doing it yourself, you're deep into the spreadsheets, you're deep into the weeds, and you truly understand the effects of it. If this moves, interest rates move, construction costs move, timelines move, like you understand it. And you start building a team, you're then relying on your team to give you that information, think like you would think, and just trying to hire people smarter than you, hire people better than you at each of the different tasks, and make sure you're crystal clear on how you look at the world and how they look at the world, and are we talking the same language? And then again, like it's a crazy business, and most people would never want to do it because of the risk and all the balls you're juggling.
Yeah. So I talk about coordination in terms
Yeah.
of actual construction coordination, but like, what does that mean to you when you're just putting a deal together? What kind of coordination thoughts go into that? Like, who do you have to be making sure is, like for us, it's like, oh yeah, it's civil. Over here, we have this point of connection, this or that. Like, are there coordination points that are important to that deal building process?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So like early on, for example, we used to do like a lot of historic tax credit jobs, and we would work with Andy and Jeff as the GC, and a lot of times we use Walter Parks as the architect, for example. Walter had done a ton of historic, so the first initial, like the steps you go through. You see the deal somehow, and then you do the rough math on it. You're like, okay, it's this many square feet. I can probably get this many apartments. I can probably pay around this. It's priced somewhat close to that. It's probably worth going to see. And you go see it, and it looks good to your eyes, but your eyes are way different than like what your eyes would see and what Walter Parks would see, whatever.
Right.
So then the next step is, we probably would get like a Walter type person to pop his head in there and say, there's something I'm missing here.
Yeah.
Like, and he might say, well, you're going to lose some square footage of the corridor here, or this column's going to cause a problem. So I would deduct 2 units off your tally, and we do the math. And so like that's our first little hurdle.
Yeah.
And then and this is where my expertise stops a little bit, is because like Adam now for the last 3 years has been doing these next steps. Is like working with folks like you guys,
He's great.
right?
Yeah, he's great.
And so he's a better person to ask that question on the coordination side. But for me, again, it goes back to relationships and trust, and like that. So Adam on my team, for those listening, Adam really heads up development for us, and so he's the guy. Really, the buck stops with him on the underwriting, financial analysis, but also construction management. Kind of both roll up to him.
Yep.
And so I've lost my train of thought.
How did you get to know Adam? I mean, like, how did that even come?
So I mean, the sad story with before Adam, I had a guy work with me, a guy named Jeff Schutz.
Yeah.
He did exactly what Adam was doing. He was my partner on the development side, and we had a couple of projects going, and he got pancreatic cancer and passed away at age 36. And so I was kind of shell shocked by that, obviously, for a while, and rethinking, am I even going to do development anymore? Like, it was pretty tough time. And it just so happened that Jeff Schutz's widow, Julie, came across Adam's resume. He was in Texas trying to move back to Richmond, and of all people, she sent me his resume.
Oh, really?
Wow. And I interviewed him, and it's so funny because I have a friend named Adam Tiller from Hopewell.
Oh, really?
And I saw the resume come, and it's like,
Shout out
no
Hopewell.
way, he's applying for this job. But it was a different Adam Tiller, and so I got Adam's resume, and I was like, wow, this is actually, his experience is very relevant, and so brought him in, and the rest is history. He's been here 3 years now. But yeah, so he's now more way in tune with the next steps of coordination with architect and engineers and things like that. So I am a little bit out of the weeds of that, and so I can't give you a much better answer on that part.
Yeah, that's we'll have to have another one riff with him that's more deeply involved. But I know that, I mean, that's what everybody wants to know is, like, first of all, from how does it even start? What kind of coordination's there? How do your expectations of what an engineer? Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
What are your expectations of an engineer in terms of coordination?
That's a great question. So I would say expectation number 1 is you're going to get me a building that works, right?
Yeah.
Expectation number 2 is you're going to be fairly priced, and speed is always some kind of a concern, right?
Yeah.
And then, but I guess the next part goes back to like, what answer am I going to get? When I'm the guy calling you in a pinch,
Yeah.
like, I recognize I value everyone's time, and I don't like when somebody calls me and says I need this in an hour. But there's times where you need something in an hour, or you need something in a day, or you need something in a week. And does this person going to value our relationship and going to try their best to, like, just not get in the way of the critical path of the job?
Yeah. Yep. So that's one thing we as engineers are trying to figure out, and trying to understand what's valued from us and what's not. So a lot of our work ends up being, well, the picture of what you see at VCU Business School, a computer room versus a VCU business engineering room, computer room.
Right.
Business school computer room, I remember, is like everybody's socializing, they're doing their work, they're this.
Right.
There's roughly equal representation between man and female and male, all this.
Right.
And then when you go to the engineering room, it's like nobody's talking to each other. They're stuck. They've been there for 9, maybe 24 hours, and they're all dudes that probably, and it smells pretty bad in there. And, like, that's the engineering computer room.
Right.
And so engineers are used to that. That's the work we do.
Right.
And so we overvalue, I think, that work directly and,
Right.
and are undervaluing what a 10-minute phone call could do for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, hey, dude, you tell me, and I could just 10 minutes.
Right.
Like, hey, here's the deal. There's 1,000 ways you could approach this. One of them is me fixing it the way you think, and it'll be in 6 weeks. The other
Right.
is, what if I write a letter right now, and then I can get that to you by Friday?
Right.
That 10-minute phone call is what we internally forgot as engineers. It's natural. We're
Yeah,
engineers.
well, that's empathy, right? And like engineers, some of them have it, most of them. That's not the thing you think about in an engineer, is having just shit tons of empathy, right? But like in property management back in the day, I'd always tell people, like, the client, what does the client experience? What do they experience, right? What I mean by that is, like, somebody calls you the problem, and the team might be working ferociously, trying to fix it, and they're almost there. They're getting ready to fix it, and the client, they haven't told the client, so the client doesn't know.
Yeah.
So, like, trying to help people see through the other person's lens is like, okay, what you were talking about there is managing expectations, communication, like those are the things. And so it's a lot better if it's going to take 6 weeks that you call me and you say, hey, it's going to take 6 weeks, but this is why, and you want to do it this way, and here's why, and then get it done in 5.5 weeks, right? That's so much better than you not telling me how long it's going to take, or you telling me 4 weeks and then it takes 5.5.
Or not answering because we're
Right.
like, well, that'll take 3 weeks and we never even pick up the phone or
Right.
something like that. Engineers
Right.
are notorious for that.
Right.
We're just like, well, this problem will take 2 weeks.
Right.
And then just we are realizing that the time we spend with the person who has the urgent problem,
Right.
we're equally spending our time in that moment solving it. So it's like valuable
Right.
to you and valuable to me.
Right.
Whereas if I did 15 hours of work and then say it's not going to work, you won't necessarily value it that. Or on the other side, I don't understand how many 15 hours that you've spent on this up
Right.
until that point where you called me. We don't know what we're doing outside of that 10-minute call.
Right.
And during that 10-minute call, we could just get so much closer. And so I think GCs, that's the art. It's like there's always that one person,
Right.
Kurt Yartz. It's just basically their whole job is being on the phone.
Sure. Yeah.
10-minute call
Point of
after
contact,
10-minute
right?
call
Knowing who
after 10-minute call.
Yeah, knowing point of contact. Who he might not be the guy to fix it, but he'll go figure it out, and then he'll he might be the one that does it, but he's the one who eventually gets it done because he's pulling in the right person or team to do it. Yeah.
Yep. Carter, keep this up. This camera's down, so.
Uh-oh.
My camera's down, or yours?
Yeah, I got to get back up.
Okay.
Yeah. Board's been a little finicky. Yeah, Kurt's great. Kurt is a great conduit to every person thing involved in the whole process.
Right.
He might not be he's like a perfect jack of all trades.
Right. Right. Which is
You know?
important, right? Because if you're going to touch several parts of it, you can't be an expert on all of it. But if you understand it enough to speak the language and get the right answer to the client, and the client just feels comfortable. In any relationship, the client doesn't want to have 7 different people to call. They want one.
Yeah.
And they want that one person to shepherd them through it, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. He knows just enough to ask us the question, like, could you do it this way?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And
Right.
you
Right.
really
Exactly.
get guys like me or Kenny or Phil thinking like, yeah, we could.
Right.
Do it that way. And that's actually a great idea, Kurt. Thank you.
Right.
Carter, you might have to.
So dark.
You had the magic touch on that. You might have to mess with it.
All right.
Our ratings are probably down if my camera's off, I'm guessing.
yeah. Guys, if you're just
Lost the
tuning in, we
beauty
got
factor.
Duke on the camera. We got the handsome one on the call. And we
Phil
are,
hung up. Phil's like,
Yeah,
well, fuck.
Phil's like,
shoot.
screw this.
Sorry. Duke's not here.
I don't know what the rules are for it, but I keep forgetting whether or not I can or can't cuss on LinkedIn, but I do occasionally. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. I try not to do it much, but sometimes it's the only way to finish that sentence,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we are. It's on, right? It's just a lightning cable. I don't have the new fancy iPhone that Carter has. These do a really great job actually getting good 4K shots.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're talking good communication, client expectation management,
Right.
And so for you as a developer, so there's a million questions I could ask, and we have 12 more minutes to ask them. But one of them is like, do you just sit there and be like, oh, that one, I have an idea for a deal. Just pops in your head and it starts, or does somebody call you? Like, how does it even become an idea?
Like the deal itself.
Yeah, just proactively like looking at stuff.
Yeah, like everybody's different, right? I know there are certain developers that like to focus on one product type, and then they just keep looking for places for that product type, and that's certainly a good way to do it because you get better and better at that types of deals. Like for example, like I'm looking for, like a developer says, I'm looking for places to do 5/2s where I can build 150 to 250 units or whatever, and they look in Richmond, they look in Raleigh, they look in different cities,
Yeah.
and then the demographics will push them to some markets because there'll be more opportunities in that market for that type of deal, and they'll do that.
Yeah.
And that's not the way I've ever wanted to do it. I can understand why people would want to do it that way. I'm much more interested in like moving a neighborhood forward, like bringing a neighborhood that's blighted or transitioning and getting it to like the promised land, making it into a place that's vibrant. Like Colonial Beach is the best example of that for us. Like I wouldn't come here and do one project. I'm going to do a series of projects, and each one builds on the last one. Each one makes the next one better.
Yeah.
So back to your question, the idea comes from walking around.
Yeah, like we're just chilling here, grabbing a beer, and you're like, man, this would be cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, the town here had 12 pieces of land for sale, the town owned, and they were all downtown, well located near the water, in and around downtown. And so I looked at it online a bunch, and walked it a bunch, and started envisioning what could be here, what should be here. Like, we had like a pretty, a blank canvas here. There's 3 buildings that we renovated. The rest was just raw land. And so we talked to the town, like the mayor, the town manager, town council. We talked to citizens. We talked to business owners, and basically tried to figure out what does the town already have, what do they need, what would move us forward.
Yeah.
And so that's how our deals usually come to be, is walking around and envisioning, what does the neighborhood need? What could this land be? What should it be?
Yeah. We're from Hopewell, so I've often heard from Hopewell the numbers just don't work. Like the cap rates are off.
Dude, we've looked a lot down there. Shout out to Heather down there, and before that, Evan, who
Evan, yeah.
Yeah, you know Evan.
Downtown Partnership before.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think Heather does it now. So we've looked a bunch. We tried to put offer in a couple pieces when Evan was down there, and then Heather's brought us down a bunch. And that's a downtown I would love to do one day.
Yeah.
And we actually were down there recently, and they showed us a few pieces of land as well. And it's close, it's getting there, but I think like what the problem is retail, right? Retail is the hardest part of anything. You can usually do single families or for sale product or even for rent product usually, but it's the retail. It's like here. That's why we are partners on these businesses. They aren't people just sitting there ready to invest what it takes to make it look like this.
Yeah.
That have that money, that want to start a business, and they want to do it in a transitioning neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or then maybe they'll do it, but they'll do a subpar build out because of cost, right?
Yeah.
And so
we see a lot of that.
I hope, right? So that's where the grants come in, and like Heather will help prop up these 5 new businesses, and 2 of them will survive, the other 3 won't, right? You keep doing it. So like it's like pushing a boulder up a hill, and then eventually you get to the point where it gets a little bit easier to push it up the hill because you start getting towards the top of the hill.
I think Bowman owns a lot of that broad. W.E. Bowman.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
It's a cool spot. I mean, definitely has it. You know, as long as you don't turn your head and look over at the corner and see the plant like that.
Well, it doesn't stink anymore, right?
Yeah, less often.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes. But yeah, I like it. I mean, it's a cute neighborhood. I would have never, thought about it. Because I've been in Richmond and all that. But we moved down there. You got the river. We're in City Point, so it's like Appomattox and James. It's just really cool.
Yeah. It's got a lot of like. What I like about this place, Colonial Beach, is hopefully you can get there pretty easily, close to the water. And you can actually boat there, right? Like to me, I always wanted to have a place where you could boat and stop and go to dinner at a couple different places. Like not just boat to boat, but boat to go somewhere, right? And you've got some places down there. And now from Hopewell, you can get up to what's the place just east of downtown? The little restaurant.
There's a boathouse. Rockets Landing.
Yeah, just east of Rockets Landing, Osborne Turnpike. There's like a restaurant and bar on the water there. That's pretty cool now. It's not that far away by boat from Hopewell. You got a couple. You can get to Rockets Landing, of course. Yeah. So cool.
That's the plan for the summer is jump on the John boat. Be a rough ride, but we'll get there.
Right.
Go from Hopewell up to
the Lily Pad.
The Lily Pad on that.
What I was thinking is called the Lily Pad.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just east of Rockets Landing.
Nice.
Yeah, I love it. It's a cool city, but it's definitely. The TI stuff is still kind of, there's no budget to do it the way it would be done.
Sure.
But
you got at the beginning, right? You got the Beacon Theater, I think was a good thing.
Yep.
And some other like excuses to get you there. And once you're there, hopefully you eat and drink while you're there, and that will help the retail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. We've seen a couple things potentially build up there, but we'll see. We that one thing Monument owns. You ever worked with them or you're doing anything with them at Tom?
Yeah, Monument Construction.
Yeah.
They did our first before Andy and Jeff were contractors. They were just we were doing our first commercial development at 409 East Main, where our office was for years, and the first Gather was. Monument was our GC, so I did 2 jobs with them. Yeah. Good guys. Yeah. They taught me how to do historic rehabs. Like they did. Yeah.
That address sounds familiar. 409 East Main.
That's
we do that one?
I don't know. I don't know. We've done a lot.
When did y'all start?
2016.
Yeah, we did that one in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we design build all the way. They're like developer and GC, and we like working with them because it's kind of that vibe.
Yeah.
They'll ask for specific things in the drawings. We'll say, well, we can't do that with this fee. What do very clear on the services being included, which is nice when you're talking to both the GC and the developer.
Right.
Is you can have that conversation. Whereas if it's, let's say, sometimes I go to an architect who wants me to do a fee and they say that's too much, can we come down? Like, well, we'll take this or that out.
Right.
But then the developer or the GC, nobody knows all this happens, and suddenly it can very quickly turn into the engineer should have done it. And I won't disagree. Like we should have.
Right.
But it's not a charity. We're all here to make money. So what can I do to give you the right service for my time that really moves us forward? And so design build really works for us in that way because they can hammer out. They're really good at problem solving. Like Scott is great at just like dealing with the craziest problems.
Scott's last name?
Waters.
Yeah, Scott was our project manager for 490 East Main.
Yeah, he's great.
And 207 North 3rd. Yeah.
And Chad, we're with him. We're trying to get him to go 4-wheeling with us.
Yeah, he's got one.
Yeah.
I told him I beat him in a race, but we can still go riding.
we were we were out here riding his 4-wheeler the other day. I've never been on one except for the first time. Completely legally on the track that we were on.
Yeah, not on the street.
Yeah.
Not on my street.
Yeah, man. So what have been?
Thank you so much.
As we're getting
Appreciate
closer to kind of wrapping, what have been the biggest challenges for you? And you could tell me that the MEP engineers were your biggest headache, whatever it is. What for this one has been the biggest?
This building here specifically.
Yeah.
You just schedule. Like I think I referred to it earlier. THS is a good contractor and they work really hard. It's because each of these projects is different here. Like it's not like they're using the same subs in all 3 jobs. Some of them are, but a lot of them are not. So they're getting subs from 3 different towns.
Thank you.
Labor's easier to come by today than it was 2 years ago, but it's still a challenge. So it's just time. The town here is a small government, not as sophisticated as people make fun of Richmond government. This picture like a town 1/10 the size, from a government standpoint. Yeah. And so there's people in this town wearing several different hats, and the people in the town are great, and they've worked well with us, and we really appreciate them. But this is new to them as well. Everything's new. They've never seen what we're doing here. Like they're zoning people and they're planning people, again, who are all great. I would say just the time. Most of our projects here are coming in on cost, but the schedule is we're kind of way behind them on the time.
Yeah. Was it your MEP engineers that are annoying and ignore you? Was it the the lead time of things, or just generally just kind of
some materials, a lot of subs? Is somebody talking to us?
Phil, are you there? Were you saying something?
Yeah, I was just going to say there is even a problem with utilities just not even being available.
Correct.
For months and months, right?
Yeah,
this wasn't even a possibility.
Yeah. Like that 20-foot of metering equipment you guys have outside because the meter stacks weren't available.
So the water line. So the town, one of the town's biggest problems is for decades, it wasn't run well. And so they're just behind on all things infrastructure, including some water and sewer. So they got a big ARPA grant to basically do the water and sewer lines all throughout downtown.
Wow.
And they didn't even get it done here until about, this was supposed to be open in August, and they didn't get the water line done until I think almost October. And there's some certain parts of our project we couldn't do until that. So the town worked really hard to get it done, so I'm not blaming them. So thank you, town, for listening.
Shout out to town.
Yeah, but we still could have been open November, December. Now it's January and we're opening. So
yeah, just everything's also interconnected. One person's delay becomes the next one's delay, becomes the next one's delay.
Yeah,
and we're just as engineers. This whole tour is about we're just engineers. We have our own perspective. We have a certain kind of personality type anyways, and so can we just open it up and say, hey, here's our perspective, but developers, lenders, we educators, architects, trade contractors on this particular topic, how things start from from you are, and all the way to what are those expectations, how are they managed, where should we be along the way where we're kind of just completely forgetting that we should be, what things should we not exclude from scope because it's just going to be a complete disaster. I just want to be on every kickoff call. That was with y'all. We were with you in Urban Core on that kickoff call. I'm like, why are we not on every single construction kickoff call ever? It's just 1 hour to just tell everybody how we approach the design and what to expect.
Yeah,
little things like that.
Is that how we got to know you guys? Was it through Urban Core originally?
Probably. I know Mary and I think went to your office and chatted with you a little bit of time when she used to work here. I don't
Mary's
know.
Harris name?
Harris.
Yeah. Okay.
I always call her Mari. She's my sister-in-law.
Yep. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you guys have done a bunch of work with them. You started in 2016. Is that what you said?
Yeah, legally 2015. But
were y'all in Fulton Singh's office?
Yeah, we shared office with them.
But we knew you guys before we started working with James. I think James did. So I met Amrit when we did Cooper Lofts, old Have a Nice Day Cafe.
Oh yeah,
that's probably
we did Cooper Lofts, right?
We did. Yeah, we're Cooper Lofts.
I think you guys did.
It was something before that because they designed it and then it didn't finish.
They designed it for Yogi in Capitol Square.
That's right.
And then Capitol Square didn't move downtown, and then that Capitol Square sold it to us. Yeah.
Okay, and so that's y'all's. Cooper Loft is y'all's?
15 apartments. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That was a fun coordination experience, if I remember correctly. We had a hell of a time with that one.
Just a classic MEP specific coordination issue is slabs that need to be cut, and that I think became a problem on that specific project.
Right.
Where we draw things and we'll ask for a camera to go in the ground, and then it doesn't always get in the ground, and then people slab cut it, and then this is, like I said earlier in the chat, they'll say they did it per the drawings, and I'll say, no, you did it per one picture.
Right.
The drawing said before you cut, put a camera in the ground. And I'm not saying that happened on that particular project, but I know there was a slab thing on that project.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but it's very common for us to have plumbers start cutting.
Right.
Just because we drew a
lot.
black line. And you're like, well, we don't have a $30,000 camera. We just take with us on these 1 hour surveys we do. We looked
Yep.
at a clean out here and a manhole here.
Yeah.
We're pretty sure it's right here.
Right.
But check it, because this clay pipe in the city, it's collapsed or whatever the
Right.
problem could be. You know, that kickoff meeting is where we could say that. Like, all right,
Right.
guys, get that camera to the ground. Don't start cutting any slab.
Right.
You know? But, you know,
But even then, you know, we didn't know then what we know now, so we wouldn't have even been as used to kickoff at that point as we are now with the experience we have. But yeah, at this point, yeah, there's a lot of fun conversations that could have been avoided on that project, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You need to take your
That's
licks.
upfront.
You
Yeah.
know, as you
Pay your
learn.
dues.
Yeah. And it's that balance of like somebody that's been around and they know their stuff versus somebody that's maybe using modern technology or tools. And that's a challenge too. I mean, what would be considered modern tools in developers' world these days?
Modern tools. Let's see. What does Adam use? Nothing that crazy. I mean, like investor reporting software is getting like sleeker, and like Juniper Square is this venture-backed company that we use now. It's pretty cool tool. Like to report to your investors. You like the real job site sounds?
I love it.
Makes it
That-
authentic.
I really do like it. You know, it's pretty
we
sweet.
really do. We're building shit here.
Yeah.
So that's an outward-facing, public-facing, investor-facing tool. Adam uses a software called ClickUp.
Oh, yeah, we use ClickUp.
Yep.
For you do okay,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
project management type stuff, and
Yep.
that's cool. Like I use Trello, which is a very simplistic version of like a ClickUp, and ClickUp's much more technical, and Adam uses it a lot. But I don't even know how to use it. He just like that's what we have 2 meetings a week, and one meeting I run on Trello, and one meeting he runs on ClickUp, and that's the more like where are we ahead, where are we behind on schedule on things.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you ever listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast?
Some, yeah.
Yeah. I remember they talked a lot about process, and like they had this one interview about one pagers, trying to like make a one pager
Right.
for delegating an administrative system. As you start doing like single family, then it becomes a quad, and then you start to get bigger
Right.
developments. Then you start
Right.
realizing you have this administrative problem. How do you scale out? And
Right.
But Adam is great. I mean, we have Phil and Carter on permits that for me that are just hold it down type folks. Very almost impossible to find that kind of talent.
Right.
It's almost we always ask ourselves, is this a trainable thing or not?
Right.
Like, do you train people
Right.
that
Yeah.
you know, and in that role, especially with underwriting and all the things that he's responsible for and the construction knowledge?
Yeah.
You want to do. If you were to grow more, how do you find more Adams? What are those skills that you look for? What was experience?
He's an anomaly because to what you just said, he understands finance and construction, and usually most development teams you see the finance dude and the construction dude, right? Look at like Monument, for example, right?
Yep.
Chris is the finance guy and Tom's the construction dude, and together they make a pretty good team, pretty good pair. And Adam's both, and so I don't think you can find a bunch of Adams. I do think that we'll build out teams over time. We'll have like an asset management team, a construction management team, a finance team.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we ever want to get really, really big headcount wise. Like we're at 3 people on the development side, and maybe 10 to 15. I don't really see it going much bigger than that. There's something about people like the more you separate duties in development, the more isolated your thinking gets, and you're not thinking like holistically, and stuff can slip through the cracks. Whereas, we're doing usually 3 or 4 projects at a time, and I wouldn't want to do many more than that because I like kind of knowing what's going on with all of it. Yeah, I like delegating. Don't get me wrong, I delegate a lot of things, but I wouldn't want 12 projects going on. I don't think I could handle that mentally.
Yeah, there's just too many. Like you have the active construction fires and the active underwriting fires,
Right.
and the fact that you're just trying to find new deals to even start the underwriting process. I'm guessing because
Sure.
I would imagine that you have to do some level of soliciting to try to put together a team
Sure.
in the first place, and then
Absolutely.
you have to have a deal worth soliciting in the first place.
Right.
And then once that starts happening, now you have to vet the partners and go through what I'm totally guessing. Tell me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
But then you go through figuring out, does everybody have the cash? How's the deal going to work?
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And then you're communicating with potential investors throughout that process. It's crucial. That's why you're hopefully only raising for 1 or 2 projects at a time and not 10,
Yeah.
because you're going to slip in the communication. Like there's something very comforting about the developer calling you directly just to give you an update versus just sending out a mass email every month or 2, but actually calling Joe. Hey, Joe, just a heads up. I know we said we're going to start in November. It's probably going to be mid-January now. Here's why. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Like that, it goes a long way.
this interesting. This conversation is extremely interesting for us nerds at the engineer because, like I said, we show up for you like at around design time, and then usually when a RFI/change order shows up, and then we're like, okay, what do we do here? And I'd like to stop that from being the general engineering experience for people.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is so interesting, and I'd like to go one layer above too. Of what about the lender's perspective on all of this? How do they account for the risk? What does that look like? How do you, for example, figure out how much contingency to hold on a project?
Yeah, I mean, Adam has a model built where each category is already with suggested percentages of dollar per square foot or percentage of total budget or whatever. So I would say it depends on the type of project, but I think he would carry like 5 to 8% on most projects. The smaller the project and the more historic and weird in nature, maybe that number creeps up.
Yeah.
And the larger and more predictable, then that number creeps down.
I'm glad to hear you say that because that's what I'd hope. Because a
Yeah.
smaller project, things move faster and looser. Things can kind of come up, and you kind of
Sure.
just plan for that. Because otherwise, it's not worth paying the soft cost to detail every little thing.
Right.
And that's the conversation we have with folks. And having a
Right.
developer like you that has that experience to understand that, it's so important to us as engineers.
Yeah.
And-
One other note before I'm leaving the contingency topic, what
Yeah.
Adam also does is build a little contingency into a lot of categories.
That's
And
beautiful.
so which God makes you so much happier because you'll get a bad news in a project and you're like, man, we're over 60 grand on this line item.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I can pull, contingency is exhausted, but I can pull 10 from marketing and 10 from this and 10 from that. So it's really only a 30 grand difference. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a lot more, tolerable.
Yeah.
Because if you're overly conservative in underwriting, you'll never do a deal because if you're so conservative, the deal will never pencil.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
you need to be realistic with a little bit of contingency built in along on each category, and that's kind of how he does it.
Yeah, because otherwise you could make the contingency whatever you want to make all the risk go away, but nobody's going to lend you that. Like you have
Right.
you have to accept the risk of
Right.
it in order for it to work.
Right.
That's where the right team that you can trust comes into play.
Right.
So
I'm glad you said that, Duke, about the smaller sometimes can be the more complicated.
Yeah.
Like the bigger job can be more predictable. We run into that with existing adaptive reuse.
Right.
A small little lift and shift could create a bunch of issues for us where something like even an 80 unit multifam, if it's ground up,
Right.
that's easy. We
Right.
can do that all day.
Sure.
But a 400 square foot renovation in a 4-story building
Right.
with existing systems everywhere, that's a little bit more difficult to try to manage.
Yeah, I had a New York-based investor one time tell me how to look at smaller projects. He said he was passing because it was too small for him, and he said just on a $1 million project, if you go 50,000 over on anything or 50,000 under or anything, on the revenue side, or collectively it's $50,000 of difference. That's 5% of your total deal cost. That's 5%. Less IRR to investors. IRR goes from 18 to 13 or 15 to 10 or 10 to 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
There's our point of sale guy right there. He's my college buddy as well.
Oh, yeah? Nice.
Yeah. But so I guess to your point, yes, you need to build more in because one little thing could throw you off. And then if the project, if you go over 50 grand on a $22 million project, your investors will barely notice. But I might need to go open the door for these guys.
Yep.
Can they get in? Hang on. I don't want to. We're almost done with this podcast. I don't want to leave at the last minute.
Yeah, we can wrap. We appreciate everybody tuning in. This has been an incredible. I mean, this could totally, there's so much to talk about with these so right now on the blueprint to our 1 hour podcast, but these could easily become 2 and 3 hour long form conversations because there's so much to dive into.
Yeah.
But for us, this has been amazing, Duke. I appreciate it because this perspective of the layer away from the engineer of your expectations
Right.
of what you're doing and how that impacts us as the engineer in the design level, we're siloed off. And
Right.
so if after this chat we can maybe if you have people on the lending side they'd be willing to talk about it too. That's huge because the
Right.
expectations from your side, from the lenders, from the underwriting, all the risk you're trying to predict.
Yeah.
And what are you accounting for?
Right.
It's so far we don't even hear from it. We're just
Right.
nerds doing ductwork, and just show people this is how
Yeah.
the real deal is constructed. So think about what's the most important meeting you can attend as an engineer on a limited fee. That's where we are right
Well, that's
now.
cool. Well, here, just thinking outside the box to that note, if anybody, whether it's you guys or anyone else, feeling isolated in one part of the deal, and either A, you want to understand the whole total deal better, or you B, it's just boring to be in one part of it. You want to learn more. Then invest in a project. There's architects will throw in percentage of their fee as equity, and then once that happens, you get exposure to the deal up front. You see the model, you see changes to the model,
Yeah.
you see how this affects that, and and you will learn so much. That when I started as a property manager, I was dabbling in single family renovation, and I watched a client do a 12-unit renovation in the Arts District, a historic and monument was the contractor.
Yep.
And I learned so much about watching. I just dove into every part of it, and he let me kind of look over his shoulder, and that's how I learned it. And the next one I did, and I was like, shoot, I just watched it happen. I can do it now.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, like, not saying that everyone needs to be a developer, but everyone can be a small investor. And freaking developers love it when like the GC invests, architect invests a little bit.
Yeah.
Because everyone's working together on the same team.
Yeah.
What a way to align everybody on
Exactly,
in their
yeah.
interests. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just say that's not for everybody, but it's something folks should consider.
I know
Yeah.
GCs and architects are that's a very common thing. You know, probably that's probably why you have GCs and developers all the same. And
Right.
then Walter Parks does a lot of that too.
Yep.
But yeah, this has been great. I would love to just continue this, but for the time being, I'm going to give us a beautiful outro music.
There we
Do
go.
it, man.
Oh,
The crowd is
thank
going
you.
wild.
Yeah, we're here live at a real construction site here in
Opening in
Colonial Beach.
less than 3 hours.
Opening in less than 3 hours. We had the privilege of having the first cold beers.
That's right.
Here with Duke Dodson. This has
Yeah.
been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, boys. Can you give me a Kobe on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Cool.
All right.